Is it?
Somebody listen to the stream.
I don't even know why you want it. Well,
Somebody see if we
yeah,
have.
I don't know why
See
you
if you can hear us.
all right. I don't even know why you want
Oh,
it.
I can hear us. Sorry, I heard us in the background because I heard it on the through my desktop audio. My bad. Get a little more sound. Okie dokie. We are live though. So, welcome to the show, rainy edition. I mean, we're talking about going down the rapids, and me and Donald have had some rapids in our backyard literally the past few minutes. Kind of funny if
Yeah,
you ask me.
it's been pretty slammed. Your
Pretty solid
mic's
for
a little
sure.
hot there, Brad.
Coming down with it actually. Mixer's not actually spiking too hard either. So, all right, but I have adjusted down. So, like I said, we are live. Um, mm, See, I love it when it doesn't. It does that, and I'm glad I'm using studio mode and not using um, the other one. Nope, wrong one. Give me that one. No, give me that one, Brad. That's the one you actually want. There you go. That way I can transition between our scenes as we go, and I don't have to actually have all the terrible things. But since we are live, and we probably ought to like say something to the fact that we're live now and say hello to the crowd. Welcome to the show. We were close to on time. We're never really on time. If we're on time, we are way
I'd say
early.
this was a record.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, I mean, usually 6:45 rolls around. We try to go live at 6:30, but usually 6:45 rolls around, and that's when we're on. I mean, granted, I had the whole thing up and running. We've been talking in the background for a while, but this is episode 28.
Hey,
Yep, episode 28 of Don't Call Me for IT Support. Um, I'm Brad. He's Chris, and that's Donald on the top there right now. Uh, yeah, this is your typical workstation and tech news type podcast. Got a lot to unpack in this one. The episode title is "Ready to Float Down the Professional Rapids" because Xeon Expert and Mainstream Workstation are coming right here around the corner for us. So, kind of getting excited about that. We've got, which is a hacksawed version of a return to HETT for Intel. I still want to know what the response is going to be from AMD. I really do. I mean, are they going to
as
actually launch? And if I were a betting
as
man, we might see an actual a cut down version of Threadripper 5000 come out here pretty soon because they basically got it sitting in the wayside. It's been sitting out there for a while, and
I
so
saw that.
we may see a new Threadripper 5000, not Threadripper Pro. So it'll cut lanes and do stuff like that. But for the HEDT market and guys, we might see that come out. I don't know. There's rumors that circulate with that one, but if I were a betting man, I'd put my money on it. So we're going to
Saw
talk
that.
about a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, now that competition to the HEDT market has returned, AMD has to strike back. But we're going to talk about a lot of things. We'll get into it starting off. We do have some upcoming episodes that will have guests involved. And as a matter of fact, our next episode, maybe even as soon as next Friday, we're going to be talking about some RAID in the NVMe environment. But more importantly, new types of RAID controllers. That gives you any hints. Um, and so that's going to be a fun conversation. And moving up from that, we're going to be talking more about specific workstations and the CAD market and side of things. And Chris, so that I don't forget, I'm gonna bring it up now because, well, I'm gonna bring the post up that was talked about it from it because I want to make sure we don't forget to cover that. I said that we would in the response that I had to the guy on LinkedIn, but we do need to cover his question about why Xeon over Threadripper
Oh yeah, yeah.
because I don't want to forget that. Um, and just because he's got a great statement there, and I, no, your good friend Jeff deserves an answer to that. So I've got that one pulled up there just in case.
Okay.
So we don't forget about it. Hopefully, I'm not an idiot and forget about it myself, but remind me, make sure we don't forget about it. One of y'all wants to type that in the rundown so we don't forget it somewhere towards the bottom or something in the topics. But yes, so we'll start off with a intriguing question and an answer, if nothing else, for Chris to start us off with. But speaking to the topic at hand, you know, they were announced on the 15th of February, and they will be available rolling out starting next week. Some start at the end of next week, some go all the way through the following week or so after that. Which Sapphire Rapid Xeon that's coming out? And okay, let me backtrack this. We're not talking about scalable. Pull scalable out of that discussion point because I don't want Xeon Max to be in here. But which workstation CPU are you most interested in, and why?
So we're talking about Fishhawk.
You talk well, Fishhawk, but Fishhawk does include expert and mainstream, so you can go up to the
Right.
56 core.
Right. We're just gonna loosely call it Fishhawk. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the 3475.
Okay. All right. Why?
It's the second most powerful one. It is not quite as expensive as the top tier one. And I think it's going to be very popular for some of our higher end customers. The 3495 is very expensive. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be one of our more popular
Okay.
tips because it's still it's 3 grand plus, but it's going to be pretty potent. I'm excited about it.
Okay. Okay. I can get behind that statement to a degree. What about you, Donald? Same question to you. What's your most intriguing one that you've seen and looked at? Because I know you and I have talked about motherboards for a while.
Yes, we have. Mainly options from Supermicro, but we're not throwing out Aces as well. Just going through Arc right now. Intel Arc. I'd say probably the W7, the 3465X.
The 24.
No, it has the 28.
Yeah, that's right. The
28,
core.
but it's still overclockable, but it has a higher it has a decently high base frequency of 2.5, with still a pretty decent amount of tier 1 cache. It can still have, and it has the same amount of RAM size, or same max RAM size as the 3495. Same amount of memory channels as well, same type of speed. And it use it. I mean, of course, it's not going to be as potent when it comes to our workforce or our workload.
Think about it personally.
But it's still,
though.
I
Don't
still
think
think
about
it'd
it for
be
us.
yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I think that's if you don't want to spend the money that it would take to get the W9, it's similar to, getting a 13700, getting an i7 versus an i9. That's, I mean, literally the difference. But on the workstation side, or on the Xeon side, which I
So
think they named that pretty deliberately
yeah,
as a
they did.
result.
They did. I think the
So
one thing that's of interest to me is across all of the top tier ones that they have, I think that the most interesting one to look at, in my opinion, is I'm kind of in that threshold mindset with you. I like but I'm right there at the threshold because I think about this in the in the battlegrounds of what's going to be the most bang for the buck. And on top of what's going to be the most bang for the buck, what's going to make the most sense long term. Now, what I do like about the 24 or the 3465 is that it's the same base clocks, it's the same boost clocks, and it's 28 cores. But what I don't like, and Chris might agree with me when I say this, is I don't think there's as much overclocking potential in it. And I think what I mean when I say that is you're already at 300 watt PVP as opposed to 225. And if you just overclock that 220, so keeping in mind when you want to go for balance, when you're looking for balance, you find balance between cores and clock speeds. And so when I look at it and I look at balance, and because I've got all of them compared up here, so I think it's kind of funny to show it off. I'll transition to the screen so everybody can see it. Kind of blocks off the 2 on the end with us, but we don't really care about that. But when you look at the balance of the 2, I'm for it. I'm 100% for it because the balance that I see just makes so much sense to me. I almost like the 24 core 2495X better, with the specific reason of you're only losing 4 cores. Now, yes, you lose a substantial amount of cache, which we can have a discussion about that later. But you're looking at 225 watts, which if I just boost that to 300 watts, now I want to give you some fun numbers, see what kind of performance we can potentially pull out of it. You're looking at roughly 30% more power usage to push it up, which means that's 33, which means you probably get 28 to 30% more clock speed, which that gets you up to a base clock speed closer to 3 1/4, which means that realistically you're probably going to be pushing you could probably push your clocks at idle with it running standard PvP with no, that because people don't quite comprehend exactly how this stuff all works, but that 2.5 gigahertz base frequency.
Audio cut out?
No, it didn't cut out on my end. It cut out on yours.
It's fine now.
Somebody muted me. I saw it when it happened.
Oh, no. All right. So sorry, that was me. Someone, oops. I didn't realize it did it to everyone. Someone mentioned in the YouTube view comments that your audio is kind of low, Brad. So I was testing it myself, but I didn't think it would actually mute you for Chris as well.
Back up, and I'll turn myself up some more. Let me actually go see if I can get the gain up.
Ooh.
That's a little, yeah, it's a little.
It's a little loud.
But it's probably loud
nippy
for y'all. So, I don't know how to cut that one.
You turn your audio down in Teams.
No, I can. Oh, see, I got an idea. I just need to go and make a.
Yeah. Person wanted. He was probably fine for y'all, but low for the stream. Does it sound good now, though? I mean,
yes, people.
For us, it's ear piercing, but. And also, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you for telling us. I'm gonna change that
for the VOD. It helps out a lot.
Yup. So, yeah, y'all just cut me down in your earphones. Is what all I can
Tell Brad to check. Tell Brad to check his phone. Who is watching right now?
Who is this person?
Who is this mysterious individual?
30
They are 0x037. Oh yeah.
Is.
Oh yeah. This guy goes way back. This guy's he's pretty important. He's a special member of the Arctic Alliance. That goes back a long time and is a joke that neither of you have any clue what that relates to. So.
What his username?
No, the Arctic Alliance.
Does he make
No,
water coolers?
no, he's he I guess the easiest way to explain it is he without I bet I can do it this way too for y'all. While I'm thinking about it. Sorry. He went to college with me.
Oh.
So yeah, that's that should tell you that goes back a good little ways. I'm gonna do this for y'all and try to
It's
help y'all out.
Brian.
No, it's
Yeah,
not
like
Brian.
1,000 years.
No, his name
It's not.
his name in my phone is not even it's an actually nice name. It's not like Brian's. No, his name in my phone is the Seal. So,
The seal. All righty.
but yeah, it's a good one. Oh god, can y'all hear me a little bit? Is it a little bit duller now for y'all?
It sounds
Yes.
kind of small, but it's fine.
I'd rather it be small for y'all
Small.
because then I can boost I can boost the gain in the board over here a ton. I have a ton of.
That's what she said. Sorry, that's not professional. This is a professional podcast.
Eh,
Thanks, Sealy Seal. Appreciate that. No, so back to the
All right.
fun.
All
the
right,
fun
back on
fa-
topic.
Back to the fun fast.
Back on
numbers.
topic.
Yeah, hey, but we got to do it. We got to make sure that everybody can hear us, right? But back to the fun numbers. Even with the stuff that I was using with the 1090XE, I would probably put it to where I could substantially set all cores to 4.5 or 4.6 gigahertz and just let them sit there at idle and still draw less than that. Sealy Seal, if I ever get something free I can send you, I will send it to you just for that comment.
For helping us out.
Hey man, you got to keep the podcast going. We might actually get some cool tech here pretty in the near future. You never know. People are taking notice of us. I can say that much. People are taking notice of us.
That's good.
I mean, we're not pretty, but we are pretty smart.
Speak for yourself. Handsome.
Yeah, hey, don't be talking about me like that now. So yeah, I would say I'll probably gonna and I'll go ahead and tell you this. I'm trying to decide right now, honestly, between buying the 2495 and the 36 or 3465. God, the number 6
For your
crazy.
personal build.
Yep.
3465.
I know I'm leaning that I am leaning that way, but I realistically, honestly though, Chris, I'm torn, and I'll tell you why. Here's the reason why: is because most motherboards that I want to look at only have 8 DIMM slots, and I don't want to have to populate all 8 DIMM slots. Yeah, not that I don't have to; it's that I don't want to. I don't like 1 DIMM per channel, 8 channel memory. My feelings about Threadripper Pro and that. If you're going to give me 8 channel memory, I want 2 DIMMs per channel, and I don't want to have to go buy. And I really do prefer that super micro board. And I don't need 28 cores. I mean, 24 cores. If I can put 512 gigs of RAM or 384 gigs of RAM in a board like that, that's way more than I'll probably ever need personally. I mean, most of my work stuff that I do on that PC anyway, on my personal PC anyways, I don't need. That's more than enough for me. I'll put it to you that way. But since we're talking about them and we're discussing our own interests, let's actually break down the new Xeons. So I do want us to. We are going to go back to the main page here for just a second of ARC, and kind of get it all out there for everybody so everybody can see it. So we're going to Xeon. So there is a breakdown here. So there are scalable. There is the
The
Max
whole bunch
series,
of scalable.
and there is the W series. All right. So W is Workstation, obviously. Then Max is the data center setups that have HBM on board. They're on chip, I should say, on package. And then scalable is just the data center, variants of them. So, talking about us specifically and all of our preferences and things about that, scalable is it's scalable and Max are kind of in the same setup, but scalable is slower clock speeds. It's designed for a little bit more power efficiency, but it's designed for virtual machines and things like that. data center use cases where you just need bunches of cores. I mean, they have up to 4-socket, and actually they have 8-socket configurations for these things.
8-socket.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 4 and 8-socket configurations, which is, I mean, I don't know what y'all to me, but to me that's absolutely asinine and ridiculous. Don't really know a better way to say that. But it is a very, very, positive potential there. You gotta love that. And back in the day, you almost, workstations were dual socket Xeon. So this is kind of going to branch in a little bit to Jeff's conversation. But as things have advanced, the reason things were dual socket Xeon is because back in the day, if you go back to the Sandy Bridge days and whatnot, you were getting a max of 8 to 10 cores, and people just wanted all the cores. And all good and well.
So to get a bunch.
Yeah.
And so to get a bunch of cores, you had to go Xeon.
Yes, you had to go, and you had to go dual socket at best in a workstation.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have PCIe and all the other things that were just a great way to run with it. But now you've got the possibilities of up to 56 cores or 64 if you go with Threadripper. I'm not going to deny them their place.
Donald's camera dropped out.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. I stepped up, or I stood up and walked away from the computer for a second.
He didn't want you to see his fluffy pants.
Yeah, it's my comfy pants.
It's his fluffy pants.
Nah, I had to turn down the air in here. It was hot. It's humid.
Well,
because of all the rain outside.
I was getting ready to say it's been wet outside for a while. Just don't want to be wet inside, and that's what she said. I'm kidding. Okay.
I think that's the opposite of what she said, that's just me.
Yeah, it is. That's not what she said. But you got Expert and Mainstream and then Threadripper Pro. We don't really have a Threadripper follow-up to the 3000 series, which we kind of broached the subject of early on. But if you kind of go back and step back for a second and look at how are things different, and how do they even, how does all this differ from, the Xeons of the past? Once again, you've got so many more cores, guys. I mean, even Ice Lake stepping up to 40 cores was a kind of a nice thing, but as I want to kind of broach and go back and look at, this is one I was looking at, from Puget Systems, setups, even the 38-core 3375, Xeon W3375, is bested, I don't want to say handily, but by 10-15%. No,
I can't see.
5 to 10%. I'm not. I know you can't. I'm just looking at something that I'm looking at. But all right, I'll throw it up there for you.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the event here from WCCF Tech when we're talking about something we'll talk about here in a little while. But it's you can see here, 658 to 620 on the 34 core or 38 core, and we're 10 cores less, guys. So I mean, old cores don't matter anymore. I mean, when you go back. I give the greatest example of all, something that Donald and I were just talking about. Donald's got the XTU on his computer, and I had the XTU on my on the old Doctor setup, and the old Doctor had 18 cores, and I was pushing them up to, I had a couple of cores hitting 5.2 and 5.3 gigahertz with ease, not hardly pushing it at all. And Donald has his Core i7. And the internal benchmark has Donald's CPU benchmarking, less than 5% from my 18 core. And he's got an i7.
Wow, I was getting about
12700K.
Yep.
So
12700K Alder Lake, and I was getting. I ran it a couple times, but I averaged around like 8200, a little over 8200.
Yep.
With only 12 cores, and 4 of those being atoms.
And so that should tell you, at 12 cores and maybe 20 threads, as opposed to 18 cores and 32 threads, should tell you that there's a big difference there, guys. Big difference between the cores of old and cores of new. Which is something that quite honestly Intel has needed desperately for years.
It's only a couple generations too.
10th gen to 12th gen. It's 2 generations.
Yeah, it's only I mean, that big of a jump is
Well,
impressive.
we are saying it's 10th gen to 12th gen, but really it's 7th gen to 12th gen.
Yeah.
People tend to forget that the 1090AXE was still based on the Skylake architecture. It was just they just found ways with Skylake to push the core clocks a little bit higher. And as they got more and more better and better samples, your overclockability went up better and better. Basically, that's all it was.
Shove it on a bigger die.
It was a big. Well, no, it's not that. I mean, they had the 18 core in the 7 series too. Remember, they had the 7980 XE,
which became the 9980, which became the 10980.
and the only difference between the 7980 and the 10980 XE was that the 10980 XE had 0.2 gigahertz higher clock speeds, base and boost. Because the actual, like I said, the node got refined so dang much, and the samples got that much better over time. Plain and simple. But going back to the fun facts, so how are these kind of similar? Well, if you remember with Cascade Lake, we had the 3175X.
Oh yeah.
So we had an overclockable 28 core back with Skylake.
That horrible product.
Yep. I mean, I won't say it's horrible. It was overclockable, but it was just the first of the workstation parts where they tried something new. Now, I think where they went with that was that they discovered that yes, if people will buy a workstation part and push it to the limits a little bit, but if you do it in software space, so here's the thing: if you're not making edits if you're using the Intel XTU and something crashes in it while you're doing something inside the OS, guess what? You don't hurt the CPU. It sees, okay, this isn't stable, shut down, reboot, and reset. There's kind of a saving grace there, you know? And I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot to begin with. And it's worth mentioning at least. So, I mean, that's where I kind of would go with that. But that's the point that I'll make there is exactly that. So, you know, it was an idea that they kind of had where they said, okay, you know, Xeons are designed for longevity. They're not designed to be, you know, replaced every 2 years or something like that. They're designed to go for 3 to 5, 6 years at a time, no problem, running 24/7 if you need them to. So from an overclocking standpoint of view, if you've got something that will allow you to overclock it properly and you don't have applications that are constantly riding it hard, it'll trigger its own trip faults and save itself and make itself last and still get you a lot of performance, you know? And so they decided, okay, well, we can launch these as all Xeons because guess what? Xeons sell for more as well. So people tend to forget that. You're not, you know, you're paying the Xeon tax here. Just like the RTX Enterprise versions for NVIDIA and the, you know, AMD W series for their GPUs and the Pro series for Threadripper, there's a professional series tax that gets put on these. And it's effective. You know, it's also something that's necessary because what those taxes are doing is they're affording the R&D to build them bigger and better and make them last for longer. And I'm going to carry this little topic as we're talking about it into something else because it'll make sense. It's an Intel-based topic, but there's a news article. I'm going to transition away. There's a news article in Tom's Hardware that I was looking at from a couple hours ago talking about Intel axing Rialto Bridge. And when you first read that, you go, oh, crap, they're not going to have – they're cutting one of their generations. They're cutting one of their generations because they're recognizing where they're going with this. They need the 2-year cadence like every other GPU manufacturer uses. They were trying to be too ambitious, I think, and drop a GPU every year or every 16 months or something like that.
That's too fast.
It's not enough R&D time between. It's not enough because here's the thing: driver time counts, guys.
Yeah.
Just understand, driver time counts, and if driver time counts, you've got to understand that. So that means you got to spend time refining your drivers on what you got out there right now. And so that's what they're going to do. They're going to refine their drivers. They're going to make them better. You're going to see ARC GPUs increase in performance handily, and you're already seeing that, by the way. That the cheapest GPUs out there right now to buy are ARC GPUs, and they're already starting to outperform their weight class per se, which is a good thing for Intel. And the reason it's a good thing is the more of them that they sell at cost or around cost, like they're doing right now, or whatever you call it to make them, the more they sell at that low price, the more market saturation they get, which means the more development that they can have to go forth and build better drivers, and they have better use to invest, which means the next set of launches that they do will allow them to better prepare and better be out there and get better products to market. I mean, like I said, it's a tax nonetheless. Nobody likes it, but it is, just be aware there's the professional tax associated with that. That's why the 2290 or 2495, which technically would be 2495X, which would technically be the follow-up to the 10980XE, which gives you 6 more cores, but very similar clock speeds, is $2,000. Well, it's actually 2,100 or something like that is the 1K. Hang on. ARC's got it here. Let me tell you. So, because I don't want to misquote myself here. So, W7, 30, 24, 95. Yeah, it's $2,200, which, oh, by the way, is approximately what the 9980XE sold for with inflation. Just so everybody's aware. So they're not really marking it up that much, but they are putting that professional tax back on it. With the 10980XE, they had to do something to compete with the Threadripper 2000 series and somewhat try to be around for the 3000 series in competition, and they didn't have any choice. And I think you're also noticing that. I think that's, with AMD, they're doing something similar with their CPUs where it's the cadence is 2 generations or multi-generational. Like, it's 18 months or so in between GPU launches. But if you look at Threadripper, they did Threadripper 3 Pro 3000 in 2020 and Threadripper Pro 5000 launched in 2022. If that cadence holds at all, it'll be 2023 before we get Threadripper Pro 7000. And I don't know about y'all, but that's a little late to the game.
I did see where a Storm Peak product made it onto CPU Z.
Oh, I'm sure they're testing them. Don't doubt it. I mean, it's, this is the time you're still. I mean, you're because guys, think about it. It's just an EPYC CPU that gets a chipset behind it. It's a upclocked EPYC CPU with the chipset behind it. That's all it is. There is no real difference between the two. I mean, so, talking that one through, I mean, it is what it is. Now, the biggest difference that I want to go back to and talk about with the with Xeons, that is with the Max series. So the Max series, this generation of Xeon is the last generation, potentially the last generation of support for Optane PMEM. There's a reason for that, and we'll broach into that here in a second. But it's also the first generation of this breakthrough of putting HBM on package. Now, AMD has their Vcache CPUs, and that's kind of similar, but not. So Vcache CPUs are literally on die or extended on die cache that's just sitting on top of the die. There's no latency. There's next to no latency penalty for that at all.
And that would be the SRAM.
Yes,
You're paying attention to memory type.
That would be an SRAM type. HBM, high bandwidth memory, is being put on the packages up to 64 gigs. So if you had a dual socket machine like they can be built at, you can get 128 gigs of HBM on package. Is being treated like a a brand new level in terms of memory. So, the lowest level of memory is memory that's stored inside is disk space. That's always going to be the lowest level of memory. That's not RAM, that's ROM, but it's still random read only memory. It's just not random access. So, after you go from random access, you have persistent memory, which right now is really only available in Optane PMEM types. That is starting to change with CXL. And what you're going to see with CXL is that you're probably going to get some PMEM standards out of CXL here pretty soon that will be on par as fast or faster than Optane PMEM that was just built into a DIM package. And that's just purely because PCI Express 5.0 is so much faster and is fast enough to quantify that memory bandwidth that they were getting that way. So that level that we were talking about is still going to be there. It's just going to disappear from a DIM slot. Now then you go into DRAM. So DRAM's the next closest memory you can get to, and it's the one that everyone's aware of, and it's the one that everyone talks about because it's something that you buy and modulate your machines with quite often. Most machines these days start with 16 gigs of it, and then you get down to your lowest level of cache. Right now, your lowest level, which is your cache, your L3, L2, and L1 cache, which is physical memory, physical SRAM, like you mentioned, on the actual die. And with HBM being on the package, it's something that's not a new idea. It really isn't a new idea. It's kind of been out there for a while, but it hasn't been really utilized with CPUs. It's been utilized with GPUs for a while. But being utilized with CPUs now, you're getting a memory bandwidth that's so much faster. It's going to act as like it's going to make you feel like your everyday tasks that are using it to operate from, your operating systems, your core functions. Think about it if you've got virtual machines. If you can put your operating system in a 56 core, let's say you're using the 56 core HBM Max CPU with 64 gigs of HBM. If you can give let's see, 56 gets divided into, let's see, 8 times, does 8 go into 56? No. 4, 48. Yeah, no, 8, it does. So 56 cores, you could have 8 VMs, 8 core VMs. Give each 8 core VM, 8 gigs of RAM. Or 7, it'd be 7 8 core VMs, sorry. So you give 7 8 core VMs, 56 gigs of RAM, not 56, 8 gigs of RAM, and there's still 8 gigs laying around there for a cache buffer once again. And then you can also go out, so if you got 7 VMs there and you got, all your other RAM behind that too, basically it's allowing you to operate things much quicker and much faster with a much better response time. It lowers your latency massively, which, in VMware and VM space, that's a huge thing. It also helps in the operational space that Donald and I sit in, because it's it's almost gonna look like another level of RAM inside the operating system environment. It's just not gonna know it's that. It's just gonna, the schedulers are just gonna have to be programmed properly to utilize them properly. But it's basically just going to appear as an additional 64 or 128 gigs of RAM in system memory, which will just allow you to treat it that way. And so basically it's going to load things up 10, 15, 25 times faster. And then once you get past that point, it just puts everything into slightly slower DDR5, which is, by the way, approaching memory bandwidth speed, so where it's catching up with HBM itself as well. So, just give it some time, we'll be back there. But it is a whole new playing field, and it's acting as that whole new memory layer. I think the biggest problem though for these new Xeons, and we'll go into this one too. If you didn't know it already though, but DDR5's got to play catch up. You can buy 128 and 256 gig DIMMs of DDR4 pretty easily, actually. There's a lot of vendors out there you can go to and do that with. Whereas,
let's check the current price of a 256 on Newegg.
oh, I mean, it's an arm and a leg and your firstborn child, dude. It's, I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
But my
I'm just
point
gonna
is that it's readily
check it.
available. Somewhat readily available, right? And, you know, speak to 128 and 256 gigs of DDR5. We know they're out there in the wild. We know that they're being made because they've been talked about. We know 512, 768, and 101 terabyte DIMMs are being made right now. But there ain't a soul in the world that could find and buy them if you wanted to. Not a soul in the world.
It's gotten better. It's definitely gotten better. So you can get you can get an 8x256 and a 4x256. But a 4x256 DDR4 to 3200 ECC is $9,800. I remember when that was like twice that much.
I was getting ready
We
to
were
say
talking
20
about
grand. We talked about when it was like 20 grand for that much. That's not a bad price for
Or
a
more.
terabyte of RAM.
No,
No, I mean,
no,
it's
and
not,
the 2
it's not
terabyte
great.
is
It's not great, but it's not bad either.
and the 2 terabyte is basically twice that.
So the one perk that we're getting now is we do have 48 and 24 gig DIMMs. They are available on Newegg. You can buy them and have them shipped right now. So just be aware.
Or not a terrible price too.
No, dude, they really aren't. Donald and I were talking about RAM prices the other day from when he bought his Alder Lake build to now.
God, it was awful.
It makes him feel. It makes him feel really, really bad about his Alder Lake build's RAM price.
So I got 64 gigs, 4x16s, DDR5 6000, which I can't even reliably get actual 6000 speeds with what is it, XPR
XMP
or XMP? Yeah, I can't reliably get it. My system just won't be able. It just can't support it. So I don't know if I got duds and I should have RMA'd them.
It's the
CPUs? It might support it, but sometimes it doesn't want to. I have the same issue with my board, and getting mine to run at 5600 properly.
Yeah.
The board that I have.
I spent like pretty much because I'd gotten my initial 32 and a motherboard from one of the Newegg like shuffle deals that they used to do.
Yep.
I actually don't know if they do shuffles anymore.
I don't know.
I haven't.
Debatable.
I don't.
GPUs are in stock enough; they don't care.
Yeah, right. That's the only reason they had shuffles to begin with.
Yep.
Is because there was that shortage. But
every day I'm shuffling.
I got pretty much between my 64 gigs that I got, I spent probably about $1,000.
Yep.
And now I can get, 96 gigs for $380 on 2 sticks instead of 4.
That means that you could actually get 192 gigs for less than you paid for 64. You can get 3 times the RAM for less than you paid.
3 times the RAM
for that.
And early adopter fee. That's when you get a new technology, that's part of the deal.
It's not. I mean, but the thing was that's the beautiful thing to it now is you can upgrade, and if you ever build another system, that 16 gigs will still be valuable to you.
And if you did an Alder Lake or a Raptor Lake build on DDR4 and went cheap, can't get that high capacity data.
Yep. You can't go up past the 128 anymore. You're stuck there. Now you can actually go up to 192, and hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months you'll be able to go up to 256. And I will say this, I'm still kind of disappointed in that. I'm a little disappointed that you can't get to 256 gigs yet.
It's been pretty slow.
The adoption
I thought it'd be a lot faster to.
The adoption's been really slow, actually, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I wish it hadn't been, but it is what it is. And
ECC is not a whole lot better.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it's not. I mean, and 64 gig ECC, you can only buy 4800 megahertz or mega transfer. So you have no upward mobility from that at all. Which 4800 mega transfer is what the Xeons are and Epics are supporting right now. That's it. So I mean, yes, you
Anything
can
higher than
technically
that's just
XMP them,
wasted.
but that's not going to help you that much. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it's not about RAM, but if we're talking about prices starting to come down, I was snooping around Newegg. You can get a 12 or a 12900 now, 12900K for $350 out the door from Newegg.
That's like what I paid for my 4770K.
Oh yeah,
And a
prices are finally coming down.
12700 and a 12700K for $260.
Holy crap!
All right, ladies and
Like,
gentlemen.
I mean, that's
Rabbit holes. Here
They
we go
are-
down them.
guys, I guess people have been buying a lot of Raptor Lakes that they're just trying to ship. They're trying to clear out of their. Yeah,
It's
like him.
that, and there's
It's like
massive stock. And actually, the
They probably just
12600K, the 12600K is $225.
Easily our
But at
most
that- but at
common
that point, I mean,
processor.
You're if it's 12600K is only 12. What do you say? 1225. You're paying $30 more. You get a 700 unlocked.
And oh yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, there's just heck, there is a $30 instant savings to buy a 12900K or 13900K and get a digital Steam code for Hogwarts Legacy. That's basically half the price of the
I knew
game.
it was
And
Hogwarts
actually,
Legacy.
it is half the price of the game because it has an offer savings on top of that of another $10.
I
So-
should buy Hogwarts Legacy. You know what? I'm about to.
Your coworker would love it if you did. I guarantee you, they'd want to play with you.
Do you actually have it?
I'm talking
Wait,
about
is it
Autumn.
multiplayer?
Autumn.
Wait, no,
Autumn
it's not
has it.
multiplayer.
Autumn has it.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
dude,
I
dude,
didn't,
she was.
I was about to say I didn't think.
Her roommates
think it
bought
was
it for
multiplayer.
her birthday.
Oh, that's so nice of them.
That was. Oh, I was gonna be nice. I was gonna be a nice boss and buy it for her for birthday too. But
The
then
only
I-
thing, the only
we
thing I
found out that.
gave, the only thing I gave Autumn for her birthday was shit.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right with the way things happen sometimes. But no, so
With how the team works, we have a very healthy team relationship.
we love each other
Nothing
and
to
hate
be,
each other at the
there is
same time.
No, yeah, nothing to see here.
Yep.
There's no need to
We're
be
gonna
alarmed.
cut this out of the final product, which we never cut, so it's still gonna be there. But we're gonna say right now we're gonna cut that from the final product, guys. Not gonna be in the final. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm kidding. So
Absolutely.
now I do want to do it. So let's go address it now. Let's address the feed. So, because we are gonna start to talk more about Threadripper and the differences. So, a person on LinkedIn that is connected with Chris and I commented on Chris's doing a Threadripper or a Xeon build and commented why somebody was wanting a Xeon instead of Threadripper. And I think I'm going to go back and I'm referencing it for myself. I'm not referencing it for them. There's a reason I'm referencing it for myself. And it's because the 24 core is actually lower clock, so the 24 core is going to perform the same. So the 24 core, the 2495 is going to perform approximately the exact same as the 5965 in Cinebench, or not Cinebench. Yes, in Cinebench. It's going to outperform the 24 core in Cinebench. However, it's going to blow out of the water the 5965 in certain reality capture workflows. How do I know this, you might ask? I don't have a 3475. I don't have all these other things. How is a Xeon better than a Threadripper? Well, I've done extensive testing. That's how I know. Between Threadripper Pro and Threadripper. And backtracking generationally, when an 18-core Xeon or an 18-core Core X, i9 Core X, can compete in both rendering and reality capture processing to a 32-core Threadripper CPU, I can guarantee you that the competition is alive and well there. Now, that does not mean that Threadripper does not have its benefits. And Chris, you and I have had this conversation till we're blue in the face. So we're going to have this till we're blue in the face again. Mother trucker, I'm an idiot.
If you are not in the AEC space,
Nope.
if you're in the game dev space, if you're in the media and entertainment space, Threadripper is still fine.
Yep. Check one. Oh, I'm an idiot, guys. Sorry. Causing some problems, but I'm fixing said problems for us. But, so going back, and just to continue, just continuations of the conversations we've been having. But, so in that, dual socket Xeons back in the day, there were some latency penalties with a dual socket Xeon, but they were not high enough when you were in memory intensive applications. So memory intensive applications, once again, is also where Threadripper absolutely sucks. If you have a memory intense application, and I don't mean, oh, it needs 64 gigs, I mean, it needs 256 gigs or it needs 128 plus gigs of RAM to do something functionally and functionally well. Yeah, guys, Threadripper sucks. Has, always will.
Especially the old ones.
I'm talking 5000 as well. The Pro 5000 is just as bad, guys. The problem is when you, once again, you think about it from the levels of memory. When you, it is very fast and extremely good at things that can function within the cache bandwidth that it has. But when you leave the cache bandwidth, that is when the problem occurs. Because that cache bandwidth is, because the memory controller on the die and the way things are being moved between memory and all the different CPU cores, there's a massive latency penalty. Massive. So even if things are all loaded up into RAM, it is still slower than you know what. It's slower than covered dog shit, the way I used to say it. Like you're not gonna get anything done quickly in that kind of constraint or setup. So now, once again, the VFX world, where it cares about cores more than it cares about anything else, yeah, Threadripper is freaking top dog. Well, epic technically, but it just all depends. But that whole point that I'm making, and the whole reason I'm making said point, is just that, guys. I mean, it's not something that we really worry about too much. It's not something that's too big of a challenge to solve, too big of a problem to solve. It's just that it is 100% the way things operate. And when you get into those situations, the other downside, and I'm going to backtrack and make this statement too. And hopefully the 7th gen or 7000 series of Threadripper, when it comes out, will solve some of this, but hopefully what we'll find is that when they implement AVX 512 with those, because remember, AVX 512 is on 7th gen Ryzen and Epic CPUs right now, 7000 series or whatever you call it,
Zen 4
based chiplets. They have a AVX 512 block on them. Because of that, maybe we'll see that performance jump and take over, or come back into parity, I guess. But if your code or your program or whatever has any implementation of AVX 512, which is just a vector bus, if you don't know what AVX 512 is, it's just a vector instruction set that and vectorized instruction sets, don't want to give you a full detailed look at it, but the short and dirty of it is, it's the number of blocks that you can put into something from a code compute and compile compute. And so if your code your software implements and utilizes AVX 512, if you don't have it, You can tell me, oh, well, we've got dual wide, buffers that are 256-bit. They don't come close, man. Not even a snowball's chance in hell will that compete with AVX 512. And AVX 512 is a Intel implementation. Now, AVX 512 goes as far back as Sandy Bridge. So that is like 10 years ago. So AMD has no excuse for not implementing it till now. And I won't give them a pass on that because it's been around since Sandy Bridge, which I believe was 2012. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost positive. Right around that time frame. So there's no excuse for not implementing something for that long and to sit back and say, well, but we've got this and we've got that. Guys, if it doesn't work properly on it, nobody cares. And if doing something on one takes X amount of time, it saves you X amount of time. Keep in mind, this is the enterprise world. If what you're doing saves you 10 minutes, the reason you bought the computer was to do that task, most likely. And if it saves you 10 minutes repetitively, 10,000 times a year, well, okay, not 10,000, but maybe 100 to, we'll just do 1,000 for numbers' sake. It's time saved, which means that's less time you have. That's faster to market. That's faster to everything else. And in the grand scheme of things, we know that time equals money. But we move past that to make the statement of that. So that's really those reasons for Jeff. I wanted to pull him out, and Chris, if you reference him to about the hour mark of this, he'll be able to get a better clip at it. Maybe we tag that into that post for him. So I don't, when somebody asks a question and I say I'm going to follow up and I'll speak about it on a podcast, I'm going to speak about it on a podcast because I want them to know. I mean, I've thought about this. I've tested this. I've gone through my theories of things for years and years and years and years and years. I'm not going to perfectly say I know everything, but if I've tested it, I definitely know the answers in that situation. Returning to the rundown, this the story we were joking about as we kind of got into this. I'm not even going to bring the article back up because it's just that it's a short discussion. But it's back to the new thing that makes HEDT kind of back, but not. We talked about the 3195 or 3175X way back in the day. So Intel now has overclockable Xeons. Much like their old Core X series, they have the 3495. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but several CPUs inside the product stack now are overclockable. That's a big deal. Now I mean, you're not going to get a ton of extra performance about these things out of them, but you'll get enough extra that some people will mess around with them. And I think really the reason that's there is to satisfy those prosumers who lost their, they lost when Core X disappeared and when regular Threadripper disappeared. This is to satisfy them. This is to do the right thing and return to a market where they need to return to. That's why you've got a 24 core that's only got 64 lanes of PCI Express 5.0, which, oh, by the way, is more PCI Express lanes, is more PCI Express bandwidth than Threadripper Pro 5000 because it's PCI Express 5.0, not 4.0. But kind of continuing that, they do have the overclockable conversation that's also hilarious. Is that someone took the 56 core, a reviewer, a guy that's out there, took a 56 core on water on an AIO 360 AIO. I'm assuming it's one of those newer ones that you and I have been talking about, Chris. That's kind of double thick.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if I can get one.
Maybe, but it's probably got to be one of those. But that model was all core overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz, which is absolutely insane. And the bastard drew more than 1,000 watts. Or approximately the total system power from the screenshot that I saw of it was like
It is-
1097 for total
it is
system
60
power. So I'm not going to sit there and say it does it, but Intel has a secret weapon now. It's an overclockable Xeon. Maybe Threadripper Pros will get that now, and that'll be how they satisfy the market. And they'll offer Threadripper Pros back down to like 12 and 8 core models, but you still get all 16 lanes. Maybe they'll do that to satisfy the crowd per se, or maybe they'll launch a line of regular Ryzen boards that actually gives you more PCI Express lanes by putting some kind of PCI Express multiplier chip, or the next gen will have more PCI lanes on the actual Ryzen CPU. Who knows? To be able to satisfy those lower tier prosumers, because that's the thing. Prosumers care about PCI Express lanes, guys. I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this in a question for you, Donald, but I'll phrase it this way. So if you could, on board, on your computer, if you could put, what would matter more to you as a person, Donald? And Chris, you can think about this too, because you can respond as well. If you had 64 PCI Express slot lanes, which means you had a full 4 PCI Express slots where you could maximize them all out and put, big cards, whatnot, or even if they were buy 8'd for everything, for all I care. But let's say, so let's go. You got 7 PCI Express slots on a motherboard now, and you've got 4 M.2 slots on the motherboard now, and you've got, I don't know, 8 SATA slots. But by the way, those SATA slots don't swap off if you occupy all 4 NVMe slots, which that's what happens now. And you've got some of the SAS connectors, which are U.2 connectors on there, so you got some U.2 NVMe SATA now too. I feel like if you're building a true work computer and you want the things that you want in there, you want the thing is, it's not always about the here and now, it's about expandability. And long term, a prosumer doesn't want to buy a computer and have to replace it every 2 years. He also doesn't want to have to replace all of his internal drives every 2 years, or every year, or every 6 months when they're full. So if you give him enough PCI Express lanes on a 16-core CPU, because let's say he only needs 16 cores, but you got a 16-core CPU, and now you've got enough lanes to where he can just put in add-in cards whenever he needs to add more NVMe storage. And he doesn't have to pull his old storage out every time he turns around. I mean, as a prosumer, that's what you're going to care about. As an enterprise, that's what you're going to care about. You're buying something usually for 3 to 5 years at a minimum. Most of the time, it's 5 years. So I would think that if that's the case, we need to have those kind of conversations. And people need to look at it
So
that
the
way.
question is,
But the question that I have for you guys is, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a Ryzen-based 13900K kind of counterpart that had more CPU lanes, or more PCI Express lanes, like say 14th gen or 15th gen or something like that, had like I said, 64 lane, or even if it was 32 lanes, doubled it, or 36 lanes, whatever you look at it, it doubles the PCI Express lanes over there. So you have that expandability. Or it's that was, would it make sense to bring Threadripper and Xeon down to the levels that Xeon's doing now, where you've got even down to a W3, which is comparable to an i3 type CPU, but you're still getting 64 lanes? I mean, what would your preference be? Would your preference be to go for that Xeon CPU type setup, or the bigger desktop type CPU, or would you rather have it where the consumer grade went up? And treat this like you're a consumer. You're not you're a prosumer to a degree. What would you rather go out and buy? if it was your money and your money alone?
My money and my money alone. That's a good one. Um, Personally, I'm not. I mean, I don't have a massive issue myself with storage. Most of the media I consume is streamed. You know, like you got your Disney Pluses, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, which is my biggest thing, my biggest consumed media. I don't keep a lot of on computer storage anymore unless I have, video games, which at that point I could just go add another M.2, terabyte, 2 terabyte drive, and you could have dozens of games installed on there. So I have no issue with just local storage. Um, Having the extra PCI lanes in my case would only help if I needed to crossfire or NVLink multiple GPUs. So I would not see the benefit of, personally, I would not see the benefit of increasing PCI lanes on a consumer grade product versus a workstation. Now, in my workstation case, I could absolutely use all of those all of those lanes, and probably max them out. But
The point I'm
from
making
just
is
a consumer standpoint,
think of yourself, like I said, think of it as like you're running this as it's your business, and you need to have, and you're not going to buy two computers. You're not going to have a workstation and your personal desktop. It's just going to be the one that you're going to buy for both. That's where I'm going
gotcha.
with this. Is would you rather, if you're going to buy one for both, would you rather buy a workstation CPU based setup, or would you rather buy a consumer based setup that would allow you to that came with more lanes? That's really the question.
I'd probably still go the workstation setup. Just from, necessarily might be what's running the business, or what I'm using the computer for necessarily. Uh, you know, it would be more of a focus more on the business, and
Play on the
it
side.
can still do fun stuff on the side. Most of the the workstation uh cards, processors, anything that's out there right now can handle any consumer grade, you know, uh, use with ease.
Yep.
So I wouldn't want to limit myself to a consumer grade product when I'm going to be trying and using that, trying to use it for a workstation purpose. It can get done. I'm not saying that it can't get done. My 12700 works perfectly fine for my workload now, but it could be better. And that's where the time effort, the time portion of it really plays into it.
And Chris, before I get your response, I say all that because you also recognize now that, and well, okay, it's a rumor, but I would not be surprised if this rumor were true. The next gen Ryzen CPUs are going to have an additional 4 lanes of PCI Express 5.0 on them. They're going to move from 20 to 24 lanes. And the reasoning I think that they're starting to do that is most people put 2 drives in their NVMe slots. Most people, you have your OS, and then you have your drive behind that. That's where you put game storage, whatever. Most people, 2 drives. So now you're not reliant on the chipset at a slower speed to power your stuff. You can do it all directly off the CPU lanes, and you're not splitting out any of those precious PCI Express lanes that you've got going for GPUs. It's all a performance play. Also, Chris, we had this discussion a long time ago, but I'm bringing it back up based on something that you just said, Donald. Enterprise grade Ada still has NVLink built into it, but it runs over PCI Express now. So NVLink is not dead. It's just dead in the sense of there's no longer a physical connector between the two.
Physical bridge.
Yeah, the bandwidth has gotten high enough that they figured out that it's okay.
Is that why? Is that why there's no NVLink like plug on the new ADAs?
Yep, that's what I'm understanding.
Is because it could be handled within just the PCI lanes.
There were some conversations out there that were roaming around that were saying it was disabled on die, and that's not a true statement. It's disabled in the driver. That's why it's non-existent on the 4090. They don't put it on a game driver anymore. They removed that capability so that people couldn't go out and buy a whole bunch of 4090s and make render farms out of them.
I've got another conversation related to that particular comment.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go into that before I answer the question.
Go.
I'm gonna forget.
You're good.
So this kind of goes into the 4090 is a chunk-tastic, power-hungry beast. NVIDIA made it that way. NVIDIA made it that way to force professionals to Quadro.
Enterprise. Quadro doesn't exist anymore.
They did, because people were buying a whole bunch of 1080 Ti's and 2080 Ti's and 3090s, and NVIDIA was losing.
Oh God, they were losing their ass on it.
Yeah, so they made the 4090 huge and power hungry to make people, because I literally can't you can only put two 4090s on. I mean, it becomes a major power problem and a cooling problem, but mostly a power problem. Now, not that the cooling is not a problem, but your regular American breaker, home breaker, is only 15 amp. We cannot put more than a 1600 watt, well, 15 or 20 amp, whatever.
I was thinking about that. I think most rooms get a 20 amp, like most bedrooms even get a 20 amp too. But yeah, you're still limited. Watt. You're still limited.
Yeah, you're power limited anyway.
Unless you're Brad and you run an extension cord from the bathroom.
Don't tell my secrets, damn it.
It's a separate breaker.
It is.
So yeah,
it is a separate breaker. The bathroom is a separate breaker, and it should be.
Well, you know why it's a separate breaker? It's a separate breaker because of hair dryers. Women forced us to have two breakers in a single bedroom with a bathroom tied to it because of hair dryers.
And I want Amanda's opinion on this.
So funny aside on the hair dryer comment.
Yep.
When I was a freshman at State, this is a great start. I was a freshman at State, and I was in E101, Engineering 101, and we had to make a hovercraft. And my group decided to put 3 hair dryers and a leaf blower on the same circuit, with the hair dryers on hot and high, and the leaf blower on, and then the whole room just turned off.
Yep.
It's because we don't recognize how much power a damn hair dryer pulls. I mean,
it's because most of the power is getting run to heat, not actually.
Oh yeah,
fan.
Oh, I know, and we don't think about that. We personally don't think about that.
Yeah,
because we don't normally use a hair dryer ourselves. We have a towel.
Hey, speak for yourself.
I said most of the time.
Hair dryers,
not all the time.
Important. Who is MJK?
Hair dryers, I don't know, but that is awesome. Hair dryers are very important. They are. I am not saying they aren't. I am saying that as a man, I think I've used them all of 25 or 30 times in my life, and the only times I've ever done it is because it was at the bathroom at the hotel I was in, and they had them. They just happened to have one. I was like, hey, well, what the heck? I'll dry it this way. Or it was really cold, like I kept my room like at 60 degrees that night before, and I wanted to warm up after getting out of the shower or something still. So I was like, I'm going to use the heat dry off. But I mean, yeah, that's the point though. That's why they're there for those breakers and whatnot. So yes, there's a reason why they exist in there, and there's also a reason why they are a GFCI. I'm not saying that. No one is saying
not to use them. I can assure you.
I am not saying that one stinking little bit. I am absolutely saying that all I'm saying is that's the reason that we have them, is because in years past when you had to, like, you would trip an entire room off instead of just the bathroom. You trip the bathroom and the room off because it doesn't take much more than a hairdryer. Like, I mean, when I say it doesn't take much more, I mean, think about this. If the hairdryer's pulling 1800 watts while it's running, and you've got a room that's got, a couple of lights,
TV running,
and keep in mind, go back into the day a little bit with me here. Let's take a trip back down memory lane. Y'all might not remember 65 and 95 watt incandescent bulbs. Y'all might not remember those. What?
I just pulled it up.
What?
When lights actually used power.
I didn't actually know how much
a hairdryer
pulled.
What's it pull?
About 1,500 to 2,000 watts.
Yeah, 16 to 18 sound about right. You know how I know that? Because I know that's why they have to be 20 amp breakers. You don't put an outlet in the bathroom is never a 15 amp. It's always 20.
Is that why they have the little buttons?
No, that's the GFCI.
Breakers?
That's the GFCI is so that you can't kill yourself in the tub with them.
Yeah, so
it's a ground fault.
So whenever you throw your toaster in the tub with you, it doesn't actually kill you.
Yeah, you'll get
test that.
Don't ever test that theory, but the
please do not test that theory.
Yes, please, kids, don't try this at home. But the point behind the GFCI is when there's a ground fault, when it detects a actual short to ground like that, it instantly trips the breaker. But it trips it because they don't want to have to go trip the damn breaker every time. It trips it there at the wall.
Trips the socket.
It trips the socket off, not the entire circuit. And yeah, don't try that at home. But that's why any movie where somebody dies with a toaster or a hairdryer is very, very much lying to you, because they would have had to run it from the bedroom first.
Probably got an old outlet. Yeah.
No, they just run it from the bedroom because most bedroom outlets aren't GFCIs.
You and might have hairdryers now have built-in GFCIs too.
That's true too, dude. It's so much craziness to it. But all right.
So back to the question.
On topic.
Back to your question at hand.
What was the topic again?
No, the question was like, if you would, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a consumer-based CPU with more PCI Express lanes, or would you go to the workstation side of things and pull your CPU core numbers down there?
I'm gonna be on the other side with the consumer processor.
I sit on that side too, Chris, and I'll give you my rundown for that, because and Donald, you'll think that you'll understand the second that I say that, is if CPU manufacturers didn't gimp their bigger processors, like the bigger processors, when they down tune and use less cores, they like actually opened up the power budget back to what it should be and gave those lower core numbered CPUs more thread or more
gas,
more clock speed.
Mm-hmm.
So like you went down to an 8 core Xeon, you got 5.5 gigahertz as your turbo clock speed.
Mm-hmm.
But they gimp them, they keep them down 4.6, 4.7, 4.2, that kind of stuff, because they want you to not use that CPU specifically.
They want you to buy the more expensive one.
They want you to move up and then buy more cores, because more cores can offset for less CPU sometimes. But if they did that and they would give you more clock speed as you went down, I'd probably go that route. But the reason I'd say I'd go consumer with more PCI Express lanes is because in the world of modeling, 3D modeling and stuff that I like to do on the side for myself, just for fun, shits and giggles, so on and so forth, in that world, single core clock speed is what matters the most. Intel and AMD both know this. It's king.
If I could get something like a 13900, not 13900. If I could get something like a 13600 KS.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
imagine that.
Like me, personally and professionally. Personally, it's games. Professionally, it's Chrome. Like, not gonna lie, the only app I use for my business, maybe Teams and Zoom,
Is that why you
is
have
Chrome.
64 gigs of RAM for all those Chrome tabs? I had to do it. I had to. Sorry.
It's only
Speak-
Chrome. I run a business. It's just web based.
Chrome
But
apparently.
I mean, like a 400-watt i5. Not that I need 400 watts, but just like a super boosted i5 with a ton of RAM, and then like a 4090 because I want to
Play in 4K.
crank it up. Yeah, sure.
I can see that. What were you gonna
I
say?
just do
Yeah,
Chrome
yeah,
all day.
yeah, you were saying, speaking of Chrome, Donald.
There's been recent updates that Chrome's done because they know it's such a memory hog that it's for like if you have several tabs open, that the tab that was like, I guess, timed out the longest will empty the RAM usage of it.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
not
I
going
saw
to
that.
have you're not going to have, if you have like 7-8 tabs open, you're not going to have 20 gigs of Chrome.
I'm still using 5 gigs basically right now. And I don't have 20 tabs open. I have 4 on that window, 6 on that window, and 5 on that window.
Let's see. YouTube is using 476,000 K. So what the heck does that mean? Can't do math.
Math is hard sometimes. But
Chrome
the point
is
is,
using
Chrome uses RAM.
about
guys.
a gig and a half. Yeah.
Let's it's getting better, guys. That's a true statement. We don't want to not give
Te-
Chrome its credit. Give credit where credit's due.
Teams is using about as much RAM as Chrome is.
Teams is a RAM hog too. It is. But keep in mind what's also typically happening in the background on Teams. Teams has its own built-in noise isolation tool. It has its own built-in background blurring tool. You know, all that stuff uses memory.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
like there's
it's not a perfect solution anywhere.
so knowing what I have up on my computer right now, I've got two windows of Teams. I've got the rundown and I've got the video, and that's using about 1.2 gigs. Then I've got
Yep, I'd agree.
Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and that's using like a gig and a half. There is no reason for my Chrome session to be using a gig and a half of RAM.
Oh, I would agree with that. You're doing a lot more with Teams right now.
Yeah. It should be the other way around.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Chrome is using like half a gig.
It is what it is, though. We can't win all of them.
No.
That's why I can't wait to make the final upgrade. No, it won't be the final upgrade. The next upgrade. That'll be fun.
All right, next topic.
Well, that's kind of the fun thing about this is that we're kind of drawing near to the end. But we were talking. So there's 2 other things to talk about. One is, how does AMD compete now? All right. So the conversation we had talking about Jeff's question, how is it that AMD could better compete? Well, Vcache is one of the ways that if they had a Vcache Threadripper, it might be able to help. But realistically, once again, that's still that lowest level. That it's at that highest level, so it's not really gonna help them once you get outside of that. The way AMD could compete is to find a way to increase their memory transfer speeds quickly. Remove the latency and increase memory transfer speeds quickly. And that's purely because that's or better yet, create a die that better handles the memory and how it's distributed within the cores, and operate things to where when it's in a low core usage situation, it's not pushing things to the cores furthest from the actual IO die. Basically, the scheduler needs to be completely reworked, and that's not something that's going to happen very soon. The next thing they could do is they could offer, 256 gigs or something like that of HBM on die or on package. That's the next level answer to that question. Will they? I have a feeling that Threadripper and we're already going to probably get a Epic CPU that's going to have Vcache on it, but the Vcache that you're getting on like the Ryzen CPUs, they only put it on one die. Like 7950X 3D only has it on one of the two CPU dies, CCDs, and that's about the dumbest thing possible for somebody in our in industry, because then you have to decide, well, what happens when I need to use all 16 cores, but I only have 6 or 8 cores that have Vcache on them? That means that half the tasks you're going to be trying to accomplish are going to be running slower than Christmas, and just not a good thing. So they're going to have to come up with something to fix that. The other thing that we're going to talk about now, and we'll wrap up with this one because we're going to laugh our tails off, but we're also going to be in shock and awe moment for a second here, which is, I am going to push this up to the screen so that we can all look at. Yeah.
About lost my shit.
Yep, dude.
This
is you can lose your shit all day. I don't care. This is not for kids. So kids, if you're watching this, tune away. This is some crazy shit right here. Quite literally. Moving it to the display.
Also, I think I know a senior engineer at that company.
At Pure Storage?
Yes.
I think that's who it is. So Pure Storage is a supplier of all flash modules, and storage devices.
Yes, I do.
And they are stating that in roughly 3 years, 3 to 3.5 years, essentially, we're going to be able to have standard U.2 form factor SSDs. So 2.5 inch, but thick boy. So basically a really thick 2.5 inch drive. We're gonna have
kind of like a hard drive.
It's kind of like a hard drive, but it's not quite as wide. But 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches wide instead of 3.5 inches. But
right,
the same thickness but much thicker. Most of those 2.5 inch drives were tiny for laptops. These are just as thick, if not thicker, than a desktop drive. But those drives, we're gonna have those drives available to us and have them able to properly process and handle 300 terabyte capacities. By or before 2026.
That's only in 3 years.
That's what I said. All right. Woo. Hard drives might be dead. We might no longer have to worry about hard drives. If that's now, okay, guys, when that 300 terabyte drive comes out, and if it comes out in late 2025 or early 2026, that thing's going to be, that will make you cry when you see the price. But
you keep talking.
Well, what I'm getting at when I say that, though, is we're near the edge of storage capacity already with 3.5 inch drives, 3.5 inch hard drives. I mean, we're 22, might be seeing some 24 terabyte drives here pretty soon. And this guy's talking about 300 terabytes. And other than sheer cost to make them, manufacture them, I would say within 5 years of that launch, we'll have 22 and 24 terabyte flash storage drives that will be cheaper than a 22 or 24 terabyte hard drive.
So in March 2022, the Nimbus 100 terabyte exadrive, which Linus did a video on, this is a $40,000 drive. This is $400 per terabyte. So,
but like you said, if we're getting to 300 terabytes by then, that means that we're going to be able to get 20 terabytes in a couple of years that are going to be cheaper or on par with mechanical disks.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I'm sorry guys, but mechanical storage will be over.
And probably hitting the transfer rates or the read and write rates that we're seeing today in top level, like the 980s or 990s with 30 terabytes of storage instead.
Yep. And not have and inexpensive drives that can handle that. That's crazy.
I can't wait for the next Call of Duty to be 2 terabytes.
Oh, dude, that just starts to get you down that path of what more. But go ahead.
What optimization do you need when you can load everything up that fast and have that much storage?
Direct storage will become a massive use case in the future, where you're just directly moving assets from SSD to graphics card. That's why direct storage was created in the first place. Is that you can see the writing on the walls. Will there be a place for mechanical drives in the future? Maybe. Just like tape drives,
cold storage. Yeah.
Cold storage that
I mean, maybe hard drives are just super cheap per gig.
Oh, what I was getting at is that I'm thinking that you'll see 20 and 24 terabyte drive SSDs that will be on par price wise to those 20 and 24 terabyte hard drives.
Because when I was at
that's what I'm expecting.
When I was at Best Buy yesterday, I was snooping around, and they actually didn't have the Best Buy in Anderson did not have a single SSD over a terabyte. Because I was going to see maybe they had like a 980. I was going to see if they had like a 980 Pro or something with a 2 terabyte. Nope, they were sold out. They were sold out of anything over a terabyte, which was really unfortunate. But on the other side, they had the Western Digital Reds. I mean, of course, that's NAS storage primarily. Yeah. But, 8 terabytes. The 8 terabyte was only like $90, if that.
Dude, the price of storage is coming down quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed the other day you can almost get a 980 Pro 2 terabyte for under $200.
I am now buying a 4 terabyte Gen 4 NVMe 377.
And here's what's funny.
I will talk to you later about that.
But I was going to say here's what's funny about that statement.
I buy it for that. I buy it.
But keep in mind, here's what's funny about that statement.
Nobody needs to know.
At those prices, as the prices are coming down to those levels, there still isn't a single application out there that really sees that much benefit between Gen 3 and Gen 4 NVMe.
Yeah.
There isn't. I mean, there really isn't a single graphics card. There isn't a graphics card that uses Gen 5 yet.
No.
And I don't think we'll see a graphics card to use Gen 5 until 2025 now, I guess.
I'd say 25.
No, 24. 24. It'll be 24.
You don't think so?
2022, they launched. Remember, we just launched Ada and RDNA 3 in 2024 or 2022.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that by 2024, another year and basically another 18 months from now, you'll probably see a Gen 5 graphics card. But the only reason I think you'll see a Gen 5 graphics card is because it'll use some kind of connection technology with something else. I mean,
and nobody's gonna need it.
Yeah, because you're not gonna need it. It's just gonna be a thing to say that, oh, this makes it makes it faster, but really it doesn't. Because they're, like I said, Gen 5 NVMe drives don't really even exist. There's one or two out there, but guys, come on.
That's a whole other, that could be a whole other podcast episode of, diminishing returns on advancing in technology for like consumer grade products. Where like you can have all these speeds, all this storage, but what does that help a regular Joe to have an i5 that can, I would say land a space shuttle on the moon or something like that, but that can be done with a phone right now.
Yeah, and I think
but having having 30 terabytes of storage and flash memory, where's, of course, progress is. I'm not saying progress, shouldn't happen, and of course it's going to happen, but like
Diminishing returns.
it's starting to get to the point. Yeah, it's starting to get to the point in the consumer world where you. Of
Like,
course, I'm going to bite myself in the foot, or I'm going to have my foot in my mouth, or whatever the saying is, in like 5 years when you have Call of Duty being 2 terabytes or whatever. But right now, it's already starting to get to the point of being an overkill.
Unless you work in a field kind of like us, Donald, where you generate that much data, there's no need.
Most people, they still have iMacs with 8 gigs of DDR4, and that's good enough for the majority of Mac users because it's Mac. But
well,
what do you have behind that camera?
I would say this.
I'm not dissing Mac.
Oh,
I still have my 2013 MacBook Pro, and it works flawlessly.
And actually, Mac makes great like storage servers. Like if you take like a Mac Mini or something like that, and then you turn it into a storage server because you can get them with the 10 gig connection now, and then all you do is plug a bunch of external drives and make it into basically your own personal NAS setup. They're great for that. They're great for that.
Yeah.
But the point being is that the advances in technology, and this goes back to what the conversation we had on networking a while back, Chris. 10 gig isn't even popular in homes right now. Right now, you're just now starting to see motherboards that have 2.5 gigs on them as standard.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, most modern laptops now are going to start releasing without an Ethernet port completely. Like they're gone.
To the Wi-Fi 6E. Yeah.
Because of Wi-Fi 6E. Well, not just Wi-Fi 6E. That's a oversimplification of it. It's because people don't plug into them. We've moved past using a physical connection for stuff because everybody wants to be so mobile with normal laptops. I mean, for crying out loud, that's kind of crazy if you ask me. However, let's call a spade sometimes. But however, I just don't see until we start getting network speeds. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's gonna facilitate that more and more. One, you're seeing fiber connections and internet connections in rural large towns. Rural large towns. So when I say rural large, I mean I'm using us as the example here, Donald. But the area of the country we live in is not a big city, but there are a lot of homes around here that have gig plus internet speeds, gigabit plus internet speeds. AT&T fiber in the area, if you can get it, offers the 2 gigabit per second up and down link now. When you start to see people, more and more people popularizing that with desktop computers, you're going to see more and more people, because that's the thing. People don't recognize that not many people have my setup where I interconnect between computers and move files and do all that stuff over a network that's 10 gig. If they don't have a 10 gig connection to the internet, or more than 1 gig connection to the internet, they think they don't need 10 gig, but realistically there are good uses for it. Oh, you guys and showing off cats. Don't make me bring my dogs in here to bark at you.
She just walked up on my on me.
Come here, Loki.
Okay, sir, you
come here.
You don't.
Alrighty.
But you see what I'm getting at. Like, we got you got to get to that point. You just got to get to that point as a internet community where the internet is that, because people won't do it. Because people don't, well, I mean, I love my parents to death, but I'll use my parents as the example of this. They have a 1 gig fiber connection to their house. The desktop computer that they have there has a 1 gigabit internet connection. It's the only computer in the house that sees that. Phones won't see 1 gigabit per second. Laptops won't see a gigabit per second. None of that stuff's going to see that. Why? Because they don't have a fast enough connection to that network. And they don't care, because all they do is browse the internet. and browsing the internet doesn't take that much. Web pages are going to have to
The
increase.
the only benefit that most consumers will see from having, that high of a, up and down speed is just the increased bandwidth that you can have more devices on network
At the same time.
And when you've got smart light bulbs, smart refrigerators, everything's connected to Wi-Fi now, you need that additional bandwidth.
Yep.
So that's really the only thing that, most people will benefit from.
Well, I'll close
from those speeds at least.
I'll close us out with this thought process, and let you guys leave a final comment, and then we'll wrap up. But the way I would go with it is this: so you've got that thought process of all the devices that connect to everything, and how's that going to operate. But when you're thinking about it from a home user interface, what's changed in the past 3 years? More people are working from home. That's why you've started to see these massive ramp ups in home internet speeds. That's why Verizon and T-Mobile have this competition over essentially what they call rural broadband by using 5G for broadband internet access. Right?
I have.
No, I've got
That's
it.
My main internet.
My secondary internet's that. But the point that I make with all that is this: it's a broadcast kind of setup. But, and with all respect to what's happening out there and what's going down, it's a broadcast aspect and a prospect for things to move up because you get more people on the internet. But as you start to put more people, and I truly think this, work from home is not dead. It's not going anywhere, guys. It's only going to grow in the future because the generations behind us don't want to go sit in an office. They'd rather sit at the house if they're going to sit down at a desk. And even backhaul internet to do work, especially when you get into engineering fields and architectural fields and things like that, those people, they need high bandwidth internet because they got to push files to and from work. And so the thought that you're going to have is, and I would pose the question to you guys is, what would you rather have? All right. Would you rather live in a world where everything moved to wireless and was in Wi-Fi 6E first, or 6E plus, so next generation kind of Wi-Fi standards first? Or would you rather see the advancement of 10 and 25 gigabit Ethernet standards? I know your answers, but I'm asking them so you can actually answer it. What would you rather see? Which one? And this is personally, not professionally, just your personal thing. What would you rather see?
Faster Wi-Fi speeds.
Wi-Fi.
And y'all are stupid for saying that because you're gamers and you get the lowest latency over an Ethernet cable all day, every day. You fools! Sorry, I had to say that. With that, it is what it is.
All I do is Pokemon Go anyway.
Yeah, you poke your mom and go.
I don't play Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Pokemans.
Where's Michael when you need him? All right. So with that, we'll wrap up. Singing that song. With that, we'll go close up, guys. I'll
sing that tonight.
There you go. I'll say it this way. Hopefully we have this again next week. If not, it'll be 2 weeks from now. I'm waiting on a response from the person that we're going to have from Grade Technologies. I'll go ahead and say who the company is. They do specialize in RAID in the NVMe environment, but they also specialize in just a RAID controller that's not a RAID controller. So something special, something
super cool,
something interesting, something new. We hope to see everybody next week. But for that, I'm Brad.
I'm Chris.
Donald.